guys, what's up? This is another episode of the McAllister's podcast. I'm your host, always Coleman McAllister. Here today after a couple weeks gone from the spotlight. I've been doing stuff with the other podcasts, but this podcast in particular, I know it's been a couple weeks since I've sat down and recorded one of these. I apologize. A lot of crazy shit that has been happening, especially with this movie ramping up. I think everybody can expect that to be a more frequent thing. Me forgetting to tune in, not even forgetting to tune in, but just getting, because there are just days I get overwhelmed, things happen, and sometimes the podcast just doesn't happen. I don't get it done during the weekend, and then Monday I could do a live stream, and then it just doesn't happen. It gets away from me, and there is something to like positive vibes that I think people need to keep when they're doing podcasts. Anyways, a couple things I wanted to talk about today. On this, the snow came back, man. The snow came back this fucking February weekend, and I was fucking living off that too much. You live off the fucking the fruits of the fruits of nature when they throw you a bone, and then it comes back, and it's it's crazy. There was all these fucking accidents on the interstate from like an inch of snow, maybe 2 inches of snow. People just they can't. Some people just they can't handle it. I don't know if it's just because they are just from a different city and they move here and they just don't know how it works, or I don't know. Maybe me growing up in a small town, I kind of learned more about driving in the winter. But I've always been somebody that's fucking terrified when the winter driving comes. When I know I have to fucking get my car and fucking trudge through all the snow and ice and all that kind of shit. And I'm always terrible about packing my car. There's always you're supposed to have the emergency kit or whatever. I do not have the emergency kit. I have my phone. That's my phone and a couple shitty ice scrapers. That's my emergency kit. Yeah, I have a car. I have a cable jumper too. I have that at least. But anyways, okay. So a few things I wanted to talk about. One of the things that has been really dawning on me lately is with this transition of becoming fully an anarchist, really giving myself into the whole idea of being okay, no government, no laws, etc. A lot of that has been almost kind of a mental health exercise for me, a way to really just kind of detach from what's happening politically in the world. And, there's I have other things I want to talk about that are politically related. So it's not even necessarily that I'm completely out of the scope of and frame of what's going on, or that I don't care at all. But I care very, very little. And one of the things that I've been realizing over the last few months, a month or whatever, I've had a couple different instances where people have either shot me messages or I'm talking with them and they dive into this whole political thing. And it's a weird place to be, because 4 years ago, I was that. I was totally in the political landscape. I was listening to Tim Pool all the fucking time. I was giving myself all this shit. And I still do that in a sense. I still try to stay informed. I still try to do that to an extent, right? But there's something that I have just come to realize in this last little bit. I mean, I've been feeling like this for the last year, but really the last month I've really come to realize is I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck that they're doing that they're having oral arguments at the White House for Trump, or Trump being on the ballot or whatever. I don't care about that. I don't care about what Chuck Schumer's doing. I don't care about anything. Any talking point that you come at me with that isn't just a baseline, authoritarian, libertarian type of debate, I'll have a debate of virtues, I'll have a debate of values, but when it's just it's just this thing that happens in the news and you're going to talk about it. The problem is that people are going to talk about it along the lines that they want you to talk about it, right? Like they give you the blueprint when they print out an article or put out a press release or whatever. They already give you the blueprint of the ways to tackle this, the ways to go about it. Oh, are you coming about this from a Republican standpoint? Are you coming about this from a Democratic standpoint? Like, are you on this side? Are you on that side? There's no nuance. There's no idea of like a third answer, right? And, I've been thinking a lot about this book I just read. I talked about it last episode, I think. Zen, the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Like really removing yourself away from this idea of like having to be in tune to it. Like really just kind of realizing like, hey, like I only have so much control over this kind of thing, right? So anyways, that's just been kind of like I don't even know. It's been something that I've been encountering, and none of these people even listen to this podcast, so whatever. But like, I don't care, man. I don't care. I don't give a fuck about what you think about Trump or Biden. Well, that's like the most annoying. Like, what do you think, Trump, Biden? Like, I don't care. Whoever wins, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. Like, okay, like what? The who's deciding what? Is it Overlord A or I can't talk. Overlord A or Overlord B? Like, which one are you gonna fucking go for? I don't know. I just think it's kind of a dumb. The problem with the political discourse this day and age is like the framing is all wrong. The how they package it, how you think about it is all framed incorrectly. So it's really hard for me to even like want to get into that without because I'd have to spend like 10 minutes dissecting like just how the whole frame of, okay, so I know what you're talking about, but your whole framing is wrong. This is actually how it should be, et cetera, et cetera. It's just dumb. But on that note, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that still happen, that still catch my eye, still intrigue me. And the main one that really kind of gave me some joy. It really gave me some joy because when things happen that are in the right direction, you start seeing good potential for good things to happen to other people, to etc. There's something cool about that, and it's really hilarious. I didn't pull up any articles or anything for this. But so in Nevada, I think it was a couple weeks ago, for the Republican primaries, the category that got the most votes was none of these candidates. About 62% the last time I saw it. So because that was a state that Donald Trump was not on the ballot. Now, and it's been hilarious to see the media go along with this. I read one article saying it was a planned, coerced, Trump invasion or something like that. Something to that extent, right? Like it sounded that ridiculous. Where you were like, okay, what? Because they didn't vote, that's a fucking that's an action against democracy. Not literally not doing an action. Literally, like withholding an action means that you're doing an action, that you're imposing this. Like, what the fuck, dude? It's such a stupid argument. And I think a lot of people might hear me say that, and they might think, "Oh, look at this Trumpy! Look at this guy who, clearly wants Donald Trump to be in office." That's not what I'm saying. I look at it as more than that. Is it probable that most of the people who marked none of these candidates, had some affiliation with Trump or really was pushing for Trump? Possibly. It could also be for RFK. It could also be for, the reason that I kind of find to be the beauty out of this, which is just completely removing yourself from the system. Completely just saying, hey, you know what? My voice is that, the way that I'm going to present myself is that I don't care. I'm not going to go along with it. That's anarchism in practice. That's libertarianism in practice. That's saying no. It's that third option, right? It's not, here's the crappy candidate A, here's crappy candidate B. It's saying, no, I don't want either of those. I mean, that's what I view it as saying. Now, if Trump had been a candidate in Nevada, would he have won? Probably. I'm not going to deny that. But at face value, when I see a headline that says none of these candidates win, or I should say none of these candidates is the category that wins in that state, that really speaks to me. Like that really shows that there is a populist movement that is really pushing for, hey, we really don't want any of this bullshit. And I think that's great. I think that's a real positive step. God, I can't. My breath, man. I haven't done this in 2 weeks, and I don't know. Maybe I smoked too much weed now. I don't know. But the cycle, the roundabout cycle, the roller coaster. Not even a roller coaster. The carousel. The carousel. That was what I meant to say. Not a roller coaster. No, it's not like I'm taking acid or something. I'm not like, oh, I'm peaking, bro. I'm fucking peaking. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool thing to see, and I thought I would just comment on that and just speak out about how beautiful of a moment that is. Because I think the common ground that I think everybody can acknowledge is, having me personally, having talked to people on both sides of the aisle, a majority of them are not 100% pushing for these candidates. Like on the Unhinged Uncensored, when Gabe was on, Dirt Lord or Dirt Nasty Beats, I probably want it, whatever. When he was kind of talking about how he doesn't believe that Trump, the entire base of Trump is 100% MAGA, 100% on board with all that. I disagree with him with that. That's fine. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that is something that is I don't think that that's the driving force of Trump. I think the driving force of Trump is this dissatisfaction with the system. And so when you mark none of these candidates, I mean, that speaks to me more than just voting Trump. That is truly because they could have just written in Trump, right? They could have, literally just written it. And maybe they did that and it didn't show up. I don't know. I don't know how that all works with the voting system, but I don't know. I just thought that was a cool moment. Another thing that I saw that was really a little disappointing, actually extremely disappointing. I shouldn't even really say extremely. RFK Jr., the boat of RFK Jr. I kind of left. I want to say I don't know, probably I was pushing for him up until probably 3 months ago. I was really pushing for RFK Jr. I really liked. I think it was kind of similar. I wasn't as on board with RFK Jr. as I was when Trump first took the political, took that guy's whatever, in 2016. I voted for him that year. I was really, I really believed that he was someone that was going to kind of fuck things up, really kind of take down the system, that whole thing. I really, fell into that belief. And I've told this a million times, but I always remember instantly regretting when he got in office the first day and just being like, oh, I just voted for another Republican candidate. He sold us as being, I'm going to be different. And look, I think on some policies, he may still have been more progressive than a lot of other Republican candidates may have been. I don't know, but he still fell in line with a lot of the bullshit. So, and I guess string that along to RFK Jr. I was team RFK, but I always kind of had this thing in my head where I was just remembering the lesson from 2016, right? Being aware, being, cautious about, backing a political candidate, especially one from a powerful political family. Whatever you want to say about the Kennedys, I think it is fair to say that most of what they did was positive. But to attribute everything to that, I think would be it just not accurate. I think that's, you're kind of playing into the whole like black and white thinking of government, right? Like, oh, USA good, Russia bad, right? And that can be both true and bad in a lot of, or true and false in a lot of cases, right? It's not as black and white as just having one country be good, one country be bad. It's never the case. So I guess speaking on that front, that's a good tie-in. RFK Jr. recently went on Dave Smith's podcast, and he kind of came on to, so he took this stance. He's taking the pro-Israel stance on Israel-Palestine. And I'm not even here to necessarily, I'm not a fucking historian. I've heard plenty on podcasts. I have not written a paper or like really am able to give you fucking pointers on, necessarily even my view in the conflict or like what has happened. Because I think that's what a lot of the conflict is people kind of have different understandings of the history, and then that is kind of what clouds everybody's thing. So, I tend to be more, I'll put it this way. I tend to be more sympathetic towards Palestine. I don't take the position of being pro anything. I'm not pro Palestine. I'm not pro Israel. I think it's kind of ridiculous to have that mind. Again, it's kind of ridiculous to have that mindset where you're just going to be pro one country and anti one country. Both governments have done awful things to people, and I think that's valid to point out. But so RFK has come out giving a pro-Israel stance. And on the podcast it was really disappointing. He correlated Hamas to, being Hitler. Like he made that correlation like that, Hitler was just an evil that needed to be stomped out, and Hamas is the same evil that needs to be stomped out. And it's such a slippery slope of thinking. People think that because World War II went the way it did, people in the U.S. are going to look at that as victory, and then anyone in the fucking, in the other big part of the big continent of the world, right, where their countries got divided and split up in a fucking wonky ass way for everybody, like, they're not going to have the same view on how World War II ended up that we are, right? Again, like it's such a weird bias that people think that because World War II went the way it did, that we can just, like, it was the same logic for Vietnam, it was the same logic for Iraq, that like, if we, the people, the quote unquote, the people, as a government, just put enough juice into the thing and make enough weapons and do enough damage and whatever, we'll just win. We'll just bomb them out. We'll win. We'll do World War II. We'll storm Normandy. We'll drop those nukes. We'll finish that shit off, man. And it's never fucking worked since. Not really. Not in a way that's effective. I mean, World War II didn't even work. I mean, the ending of that whole thing didn't even work. Really. I mean, all these conflicts that we're having here, all as a result of that. It's all a chain reaction. It's all part of the same cycle of, just damage, just humanity damaging itself, right? The thing that is inevitable, but surely expanded through government. So anyway, so this is just kind of an L. Not kind of an L, in my mind, a huge L for RFK Jr. I can imagine that a lot of his base is divided on that. He also has, I've talked about this before, he has wacky stances when it comes to the equity stuff that I don't agree with, and that they're very, people call him like a quote-unquote libertarian candidate. I mean, those are very anti-libertarian. His stance on Israel is very anti-libertarian. So I guess my point is, a lot of people who were in the Libertarian Party who were, I saw really back in RFK, I encourage you to rethink that. I encourage people to rethink how they feel about RFK Jr. The episode's going to drop tomorrow. We talk about apparently RFK Jr. left some comment on some, white chick was, showing her ass or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, that's gorgeous" or something like that. which is just hilarious. He's married and all that. Such an RFK move, right? He probably like met her up in a city and was like, she was like, "Oh, I'll meet you if you leave a like on my video." You know, he's a Kennedy, man. He's a Kennedy. You know he's getting pussy on the side. You know that motherfucker's getting pussy on the side. He's got like the fucking like 5 of the top 10 actresses just like fucking. He's Harvey Weinstein the shit right now. I'm fucking telling you, man. He fucking is, man. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't think that. Although it is, he had pretty good explanation, but him being on the Epstein flight logs is also kind of. Although that whole thing's interesting too, right? Like how much of that is even. Do we even know those are the correct flight logs? You never know, right? You'll never fucking know. Okay, last thing I wanted to talk about before we maybe wrap this up. I have no idea. It's kind of a shorter episode. You know, you don't do this for a couple weeks and then getting back into it sucks. But I think this Saturday we're going to be doing another. I'm going to try to be doing these live streams more frequently, the fundraising live streams, because the Fed fucked me in my taxes this year. So I did not get. I got. I'm not even gonna say how much. Not very much. But so yeah. So last thing we're gonna talk about, my movie of the week. Something I loved, something I enjoyed. It did not blow me away quite as I thought it would, but it definitely still delivered. Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Martin Scorsese movie, the new-ish. I mean, it came out in October of last year, so not really new, about 5 months old. Because I'm cheap and I didn't want to spend $20 on this, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. I'm kind of glad I just got the month of Apple and was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. No, it was very good. It would I think compared to The Irishman, it was far superior to The Irishman. It was a more interesting time period, and that was kind of the thing that kind of was lacking of The Irishman. I felt like it was basically him doing Goodfellas again, but like doubling the length, and obviously it was a different story, but like it was that same kind of vibe. Like we're even going to use all the same actors and just do a really shitty job de-aging them. And this movie, he didn't do any of that. I really think he probably kind of learned from that. It was an intriguing story. It was something that I personally didn't know about before this movie happened. So it was interesting to learn that historical aspect. Watching like the complexity of, him and his wife's relationship while he's helping his father like take over the family and the wealth, but at the same time he also he seems to be in love with this girl at points, but then he's not. It's really interestingly done in that way, and it was intense. Like there was a lot of death. I mean, way more. I mean, from the title you're gonna guess, right? But just a really interesting movie. It was long. It was a little long. And this kind of brings me into something I want to talk about too, with a lot of these directors, and even Tarantino, I think, to an extent. Like a lot of these guys that were really hot in the 80s and the 90s, Spielberg's another good example. Like there's a point where they just have done too much and they have like an overabundance of resources to just create these things that are just massive and like way too long. Like they're utilizing the ease of digital and all that to just like overdo it, right? Like I'm a big believer in like the 90-minute, 100-minute movie. Like really trying to keep your audience in it for a certain amount of time and not having to rely on, okay, like I'm going to give you this 3.5-hour epic and you're going to watch just because I'm Martin Scorsese, right? And like in this time it worked. Like I genuinely sat through that 3.5 hours like, okay, this is the shit. This is actually a good movie. But it just, I guess my point is like, I feel like we're kind of in an age with this generation of directors where it's getting to be a little bit too much. It's getting a little bit flown. or fold or whatever. You know what the fuck I mean, right? And this isn't even necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's exciting in a way. I think we're going to see a lot of new innovation. I think a lot of these newer directors, Ari Aster, etc., directors Paul Thomas Anderson, we are going to start seeing the same kind of thing happen. Hell yeah! So it was a good movie. I highly recommend everybody watching it. And guys, that's the episode. Wasn't super long. I apologize, but I'm glad I was able to get in on your Monday afternoon. Stay tuned. We got the Unhinged, Uncensored podcast dropping tomorrow at 2 p.m. We have the Guts and Gore podcast dropping Thursday at 2 p.m., hopefully, assuming that we have an episode for that. We're about to record one, so I assume so. But hell yeah. Hope everybody had a good time, has a good time, is having a good time. Stay warm in the weather, everybody. And yeah, see you next time. All right. And by the way, probably around 8 a.m. I'm gonna say we're gonna do a little fundraising live stream. Plays a Fallout probably, and we're gonna do that for a few hours. So stay tuned for that as well. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.